Did you know that Max Verstappen ended his race in Austria with a scream of rage over the radio that left the paddock in shock? And even more shocking, this emotional outburst could mark the beginning of a bigger crisis at Red Bull. What's really going on with the RB21, and why is Verstappen so frustrated this season? In this video, we break down the incident in Austria 2025 that ended Max Verstappen's race, and why this moment could mark a turning point for Red Bull. Max Verstappen arrived at the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix with a mixture of pressure, anticipation, and some pent-up frustration. It wasn't just another race, it was his home circuit, a track where he had traditionally shone and where his fans supported him with a unique intensity. However, the reality of the moment contrasted with the previous excitement. Throughout the season, Red Bull had struggled with the development of the RB21, and this was evident from the start of the weekend. During qualifying, the car's performance was once again disappointing. Verstappen could only manage a 7th position on the starting grid, equaling his worst result of the season. A fact that, in itself, set off alarm bells in the paddock. For a driver accustomed to fighting for pole positions and wins, starting from the 4th row at home was unacceptable. But Max isn't someone who gives up easily. From the start of the race, his intention was clear: to climb positions as quickly as possible and minimize the damage. The first lap was intense, as it often is in Austria. And then the unexpected happened. As Max tried to position himself better before turn 3, he found himself in the middle of chaos caused by a mistake by youngster Kimi Antonelli, who locked his rear tires in an attempt to avoid the car in front of him. Within seconds, the rookie lost control of his Mercedes and ended up colliding with Verstappen's Red Bull. That moment was the breaking point. Max's race was over almost before it had begun, and with it his perfect streak of points in the first 10 rounds of the championship. But beyond the loss of points, what truly broke in that instant was the patience of the 4-time Formula One world champion. The pent-up frustration, the car problems, the pressure of being behind in the championship, and now a retirement on his own home soil, ignited a spark that would be impossible to contain. The opening lap of the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix promised excitement from the start, and it didn't disappoint. Max Verstappen, starting from an unusually low position, was determined to make up ground as quickly as possible. In his mind, every corner was an opportunity to prove he was still a strong contender despite the struggles he'd faced throughout the season. But that determination would be abruptly cut short by a mistake not his own. Approaching turn 3 of the Red Bull Ring, a critical braking zone where incidents are common, Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli made a key mistake. Stuck in heavy traffic, and with Liam Lawson braking earlier in front of him, Antonelli locked the rear wheels of his W16 in a desperate attempt to avoid contact. But instead of successfully avoiding the collision, he completely lost control of the car, ended up on the dirty side of the track, and went straight into the side of Verstappen's Red Bull. The impact was inevitable. The image of the crash was as swift as it was brutal. In milliseconds, Verstappen's car was out of the race. The entire paddock fell silent for a few seconds. It wasn't just the retirement of one of the most important drivers on the grid. It was the end of an impeccable run of points, the hardest blow to an already complicated season, and it all happened right in front of the thousands of Dutch fans who had filled the stands to see him shine at home. And then came what ultimately set social media ablaze: Verstappen's reaction on the radio. As soon as the impact occurred, he uttered a phrase that left no room for interpretation. In a tone thick with anger, he shouted, "I got hit like crazy. Fing idiots." That verbal outburst was much more than a racing outburst. It reflected a mixture of helplessness, pent-up frustration, and a deep rage that had been building since previous races. What for some was simply a complaint about the incident was actually the outlet for weeks, or even months of tension under pressure. The message instantly went viral. It was replicated by the media, shared on social media, and analyzed on specialized programs. But beyond the words, what caught attention was the tone. Max wasn't simply upset. He was emotionally drained. His voice echoed not only the anger of the moment, but also a deeper disappointment, the feeling that things were not under control, both on and off the track. The rookie accepted his responsibility without hesitation, and even went personally to apologize to Verstappen in the paddock. However, for Max, the damage had been done. He hadn't just lost a race, he had added another disappointment to a season in which his patience seemed to be wearing thin ever more quickly. The incident wasn't just a racing accident. It was a symbol of the kind of year Verstappen is having. A year where everything seems to cost twice as much, where other people's mistakes also matter, and where every withdrawal represents much more than lost points. What happened in Austria was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind that frustrating retirement lies an uncomfortable truth that Red Bull can no longer hide. The RB21 isn't up to scratch. Throughout the 2025 season, the team has tried to contain the narrative that they are in a crisis, but the results and the car's performance have been painting a different story. And Max Verstappen knows it. His reaction on track, his body language, and especially his statements afterward made it abundantly clear he doesn't fully trust the car he's been given. Red Bull arrived in Austria with a package of updates that, in theory, were supposed to mark a turning point. Changes to the floor, side wings, and front wing have been specifically designed to improve the RB21's balance, an area that has been its Achilles heel since preseason. But instead of moving forward, they regressed. Verstappen's qualifying was a direct example of the negative impact of those improvements. 7th on the grid, lacking the pace to fight for the front rows, and with a car that seemed increasingly unpredictable. The disappointment was evident within the team. Pierre Watch, Red Bull's technical director, had warned since testing in Bahrain that the car was behaving erratically. And although they tried to adjust the operating window with these latest updates, the result was even worse than expected. Helmut Marko himself, always straightforward, acknowledged before the weekend that these modifications would likely be the last major ones of the year. This means that, for the remainder of the season, the team might not have any more opportunities to correct the RB21's conceptual flaws. Christian Horner, for his part, tried to calm the waters. He said they understood the car's fundamental problems, but that solutions would take longer than expected. However, in Formula One, time is a luxury few can afford. While McLaren and Ferrari are advancing race after race, Red Bull seems to have gotten stuck trying to squeeze a concept that clearly isn't working. The difference is especially clear when analyzing performance in variable conditions. The RB21 doesn't respond well to temperature changes, nor does it adapt easily to different types of corners or layouts. This has left Verstappen in a difficult situation. He's used to fighting for pole positions, for wins, and for records. But this year, he's often had to settle for damage control. In several races, he's worked wonders with a car that simply can't keep up. But even for a driver of his talent, there is a limit. When the car isn't performing and the team can't find answers, frustration grows. And in Austria, that frustration reached its peak. Austria didn't just mean an unexpected retirement for Max Verstappen. It was a strategic loss of points that could have a huge impact at the end of the season. Up until that point, Max had been scoring points in every race, building a solid foundation in the championship. But with his retirement and McLaren's 1-2 finish, with Piastri and Norris occupying the top spots, the gap in the standings widened alarmingly. Verstappen was 61 points behind the leader, and with more than half a season left, that represents a disadvantage he can't ignore. But beyond the numbers, the biggest blow was emotional. Max is a driver who has always stood out for his aggressive mentality and almost unwavering confidence. However, after the race, his statements revealed something different. He said Red Bull was thousands away from pole and expressed real doubts about the team's competitiveness for the rest of the year. These kinds of comments aren't common from him, and they made it clear that, for the first time in a long time, he's not just fighting against his rivals, but against his own environment. And that doesn't just affect Verstappen. The tension is also felt within the team. Red Bull, accustomed to leading technical development and making decisions with authority, now finds itself chasing. The roles have reversed. They are no longer the ones setting the pace, they are the ones trying to catch up. The technical staff, from Christian Horner to the track engineers, are under pressure. Every race that passes without real progress deepens the feeling that the RB21 project has no immediate solution, and that directly affects the team's collective morale. The 2025 season has entered a decisive phase. What happens from now on will not only determine the outcome of the championship, but also the direction the teams take in 2026. And in Red Bull's case, the next moves will be crucial to determine whether they still have a realistic chance of making up ground, or whether they must accept that this will not be their year. For Max Verstappen, This final stretch represents a crossroads. Keep the pressure on or start looking beyond the short term. The current outlook is not encouraging for Red Bull. After the failure of the updates introduced in Austria, the team has made it clear that there will likely be no further major developments for the RB21. This, in practice, means they will race the rest of the year with a car that has not proven to be competitive against McLaren, nor reliable in terms of balance and consistency. And that puts Verstappen in a difficult situation. He has to do a lot with very little, getting the most out of every stint, every qualifying session, and capitalizing on any mistakes from their rivals to stay in the fight. However, all is not lost. There are factors in Red Bull's favor that could give them a chance to fight back, even if only partially. The most important is the additional development time they will receive due to their current position in the Constructors' Championship. By not leading, the team will have greater access to the wind tunnel and CFD simulations, which could become an advantage if they can identify specific solutions to the RB21's problems. Added to this is the experience accumulated by Verstappen, a driver who has already demonstrated his ability to achieve results even with inferior cars. For Verstappen, each of the remaining 13 races will be a test of character. He's not just fighting for a championship, he's defending his legacy, his leadership within the team, and his relevance against a new generation of drivers that is growing stronger every day. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, even youngsters like Antonelli, despite his mistake in Austria, are claiming a place at the top of Formula One. Max can't give up. He'll have to reinvent himself, adapt, and keep pushing despite the technical limitations that surround him today. Max Verstappen is no longer just fighting for a championship. He's fighting to maintain control of his narrative in a season that threatens to change his place in Formula One. The retirement in Austria wasn't just another incident. It was the reflection of an accumulation of frustrations, unresolved technical issues, and a team that, for the first time in years, has no clear answers. The image of Max shouting over the radio wasn't that of an overwhelmed driver. It was that of someone who fully understands what's at stake and is no longer willing to pretend that everything is fine. The difference now is that the competition isn't waiting. McLaren has established itself as the benchmark of the year. Piastri and Norris aren't just scoring points. They're sending a clear message of a change of pace. Meanwhile, Red Bull is navigating unstable terrain, and Verstappen knows it. Therefore, what Verstappen does in the coming weeks will be decisive. Not just to stay in the fight, but to show the paddock and the world that he's still the most complete driver on the grid, even without the best car. In moments of glory, it's easy to be dominant, but it's in times of crisis that greatness is truly defined. And if anyone can transform a difficult season into a statement of character, it's Max. Now it's your turn. I want to know what you think. Do you think Verstappen is reaching his limit with Red Bull? Let me know your views in the comments.